Hello guys, welcome back to VC Tech. In today's video, we'll be talking about SSH, also known as Secure Shell. It is one of the most important protocols in networking and cybersecurity in general. Now, if you've heard of Telnet, think of SSH as a more secure and advanced version. We will look at how SSH works, why it's important, and how network administrators use it to remotely access and manage devices safely. Now, with that being said, let's head over and see what we have in our PowerPoints and what SSH is. SSH is a cryptographic network protocol used to securely access and manage network devices over an unsecure network, as it provides encrypted communication between clients and server system. So how SSH works is SSH establish a secure channel between a client and a server through a process called encryption. Authentication is typically done using password or cryptographic keys to verify identity. We also have the benefits of SSH. The benefit includes it provides encrypted communication as it prevents eavesdropping and man-in-the-middle attack. It also allows file transfer, SCP and SFTP. It supports remote command execution and it ensures integrity and confidentiality in communication. So why SSH is important in networking is SSH play a vital role in network administration and cybersecurity. It replaces insecure protocol like Telnet and ensures that sensitive data or information such as login credentials cannot be intercepted by attackers. Now, with that being said, let's head over to our Cisco Packet Tracer lab where we can see how we can configure SSH on a switch. So for this tutorial, we'll be configuring SSH on a switch. So first of all, we have to get into the switch and we have to assign interVLAN 1 an IP address, which is going to serve as the management IP of the switch. So how do we do that? We say IP add, we say 192.168.1.1.254. It will be taking the last IP address on the network with a subnet mask of 255.255.0. We also want to say no short. So by doing this, we've assigned IP address to the management or interVLAN 1 ports on the switch. Now let's also create a host name or assign a host name. So for this, we'll be giving the host name to be VC Tech as usual. And we also want to IP domain. IP domain name to be VC Tech also. We also want to configure the username. The username to be VC Tech. And the password should be VC Tech. The password should be VC Tech. As well as we want to enable the password. Enable password, we want to be using Tor. Now guys, this is the credentials that we are going to be using to log in to the switch remotely. Whenever we want to log in, we always need to use the username and the password and also the enable password, as you have seen what this does in the previous video. So this is the credentials that we are going to be using to remotely access the switch whenever we want to log in using SSH. We are going to be using this username and the password and also the enable password. Now let's do show run to see what we have. As we have the the IP domain name as vctech, and enable password as tor, and username as vctech. And also, as you can see, we have our username to be vctech and our password is in plain text. However, we can change that. We can do username and password. Username to be vctech, and instead of using password, we are going to use secret. So the password will not be in plain text, just the way it is here. So we'll be using vctech still. We're using vctech still. Error cannot have boot. Oh, let's remove the first one. So the first one was we just used password and vctech. So we want to say no to remove this because we cannot have two of it. Then let's try the other one again. Now we've done this one. This one is now active. It's no more showing us cannot have both user password and user secret. Let's also do do show run once again to confirm what we just did. And as you can see, our username still remains in plain text, while our password is now encrypted, as we do not know what this password is. Now let's get into the configuration properly of SSH on the switch. Let's also define the default gateway to be 192.168.1.1. We've assigned a default gateway to the switch, as we have also created username and password, and we've also enabled the password. Now let's get into the configuration of SSH. Remember, SSH uses a cryptographic protocol to securely access and manage network devices over unsecure network. So with that being said, let's configure our SSH. We want to be using the latest version of SSH, so IP SSH, we want to check for the latest version, which is version 1 to 2, and remember to always use the latest version, which is 2. And SSH uses a cryptographic key. This is where the encryption and authentication comes into play. So it uses a crypto key, and it generates, you want to see generate ROSA, and when it gets to this part, you want to say 1024, as the configuration for SSH has been done. This step, what we just did right here, is the encryption step. We've not told the switch how devices can remotely access the switch. We just only encrypt any communication that will be passing through SSH. Let's configure how we can remotely access switch using SSH. So line VTY 0 to 5 users, and we also want to specify that we'll be using the login credentials, which is the one we created. So login local, the credentials we created, the login local credentials we created is this username and the password that we created, which is username and password, and also enable password that we did somewhere around, where is it? Somewhere around here, enable password. So these are the credentials that we are going to be using to remotely access the switch. So login local, then also a transport, how we are going to use to, what means that we are going to use to access the switch. And for this, we want to be using SSH. By doing this, we've configured SSH on the switch. So whenever we want to remotely access the switch, we are going to access it using SSH, and SSH is more secured because it uses a cryptographic key to make sure communication over untrusted or unsecured network goes through smoothly without cyber attacks or man-in-the-middle attack. So with that being said, let's try to test our communication by trying to remotely access the switch from a device that is not on the network. So how do we do that? We say SSH-L, and we want to specify the username of the switch, and also specify the IP address of the management IP on the switch. So by doing that, it's now asking us for the password that we use, or the password that we are using, which is vctech enable. This is where the enable password comes into play once again, and if you can remember, our enable password is TOR, T-O-R. And as you can see, once again, we are able to gain access to the switch remotely from another device. We are able to remotely access the switch. This is the switch from this device, which is in a different local area network. Let's also try to access the switch from this device in the same local area network. Let's assign IP address to this device, 192.168.1.6. We want to copy that and set the default gateway. Guys, we can do this for those of us who don't know about command prompt in our system. You could use a command prompt in your system to check for your IP address, and also to use SSH to remotely access a device or any devices that you want to access. You can do that using your laptop. You just go to the search bar and look for command prompt. So SSH-L, and we want to specify the username of the switch, as we want to also specify the management IP of that switch, which is 254. Once again, we are being asked what's the password, as I've made mistake. Okay, so let's try that again. vctech enable, and the enable password is TOR. By doing that, once again, we've also gained access to the switch remotely. Let's change the username, or let's change the host name of this switch to Victor. Let's also go to the switch and check if the username it's the same. As you can see, guys, we are able to change the username on the switch remotely from another device. So this is how we remotely access a device using SSH, which is more secured compared to Telnet. Now with this, you can communicate. You don't have to be present to manage or configure anything on the switch. If this video helped you understand how SSH works, it's going to be helpful if you like, subscribe, and also share this video. See you in the next class.